Hey guys, it's Morna, and this video is the Industrial Design 7-question challenge. Jimmy from Jimmy Design asked me a couple months ago to help him create this kind of challenge for industrial design channels here on YouTube. And it's kind of grown into this something that I never imagined it would be. And so I'm really excited about that. There's a ton of channels, at least like 15, 16 channels that are participating. If you want full details, check out my description box for all the channels that are participating. And it's a kind of amazing. Special thanks to Sam from Sam Design, because he had the amazing idea to be like, why don't we just contact like all the channels on YouTube and ask them to participate? So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, number one, industrial design is a fairly uncommon field. How did you discover it? So when I was in my late teens, my father used to watch industrial design lectures from Carleton University, which is a local university, and he used to like kind of wave me into the den where he was watching TV and be like, come on, Morna, I think you'd really enjoy this. And I guess me being, I don't know, a teenager, I was like, yeah, whatever. I couldn't imagine ever having similar interests to my father, and so I just dismissed him. And I think at that time he might have actually given me a book on industrial design that was like his book. It was like super old, and I think I just took a look at the cover and just put it back on my shelf. So I heard the word industrial design. I had no idea what it was at that time. And then after I went to art school, it was my boyfriend at the time who really introduced me to design. And I think it was the way that he introduced it to me. It was more in terms of ethics and how to live a good life. You could have like 3 things in your apartment, but if they were beautifully designed, brought you joy and pleasure when you used them, then that's a pretty good life, right? So I think with like that, in that frame, I became interested in design and in industrial design, because I just felt like, yeah, I want to be a part of that. I want to, do that for other people. So that's how I came to discover industrial design. So number 2, how do you explain your job to those who do not know about ID? So I usually say that I'm an industrial designer who designs physical products. I use the word industrial designer for educational purposes so that people start hearing the word, right? And then I say physical products to give them some sense of what that is. And usually they still look at me like they have no idea what I'm talking about. So then I usually say, yeah, well, for me, I design all the physical aspects of a product, thinking about, who's going to use it, how this person is going to use it. So we're thinking about the function and the form and the material, and then figuring out how this product is going to be. We're going to design it for manufacturing, for industry, which is where the word, industrial comes from. We're designing for industry, and yeah, so that's what I say. What inspirations have developed your ID style? So when I think of style, I think of a particular way of doing something. And in relation to industrial design, I would think that is the design process. My inspiration would have to be the people that I work with, because when you work with other people, especially other designers, it's actually an amazing thing, because you learn and discover how other people think. And so in that process of figuring out a design, you have all these kind of convergent ways of how people think, and it's very eye-opening and educational. The design process, it is a thinking process, right? Your thinking style, how do you tackle a problem, how to figure out the hierarchy of issues, because especially in a project that's very complex and has a lot of like new information. Like at the beginning, you're taking in large amounts of information and learning. You know, you have to at the end figure out, well, what is the hierarchy? What is the you're trying to design? In some sense, you have to design the process to figure out the problem, right? So you really have to get a sense of like, what is the hierarchy? What is the thing at the top that you need to figure out first that's going to affect all the things that come after it? And that thinking process, like where I naturally go, I would say is most definitely the result of being inspired and influenced by the people that I work with. Number 4 is, which company would you love to design a product for? Okay, so I don't really have a company that I would love to design a product for. And I guess I probably should have a company that I would love to design a product for. I feel like this question is kind of similar to a question of like, you know, what's one product that you would love to design? And I have a hard time answering these types of questions. And I think one of the reasons is what I found over time with experience is that, you know, like the most interesting, challenging, exciting projects that I've worked on, I would have, like, they would have never come from my own brain. Like I would have never envisioned them. So in some ways, I'm quite happy and open to let, you know, these interesting projects come to me, because I actually think that they're probably more interesting than something that I could ever imagine. I mean, don't get me wrong, because the part of being an industrial designer that I love is the kind of materialization of an idea. So, you know, how do you bring this idea to, you know, a physical, what is the best possible physical solution for this idea? And then how do you actually make it a reality, manufacturable reality? And I love that process, and I love to do it. So as far as like the specifics of what it is, like I kind of love the not knowing part, the not having too much in the future planned, because it just makes it so much more interesting and exciting. Number 5, what is your go-to industrial design program and why? So I work in SolidWorks, Illustrator, Photoshop, most of the time in SolidWorks. I mean, the majority of the work is in CAD, but that's also due to the type of projects that I work on. And so it's necessary to work in a CAD program. SolidWorks is what I learned when I went to school, and is still kind of one of the standard industry programs. Now, I don't have like warm and fuzzy feelings for any software programs. A lot of the work is in CAD, and that can be challenging to spend so much time working like you do when you do work in CAD. Challenges in terms of just the way that it can affect how you feel. If you're doing a lot of work in CAD and not a lot of talking, because I found that so much of my work was just in my head and in the computer, and it was just a dialogue between my head, and in the computer, and so you kind of, at the end of the day, you sort of feel a bit like you forget how to talk to people. So that's one of the things that I don't like about working in the computer, but it is necessary, and I would always want to work in CAD because of the control that it gives you over whatever it is you're designing, because you're controlling everything, the form, the dimensions, the appearance. I wouldn't change that aspect, because I do like the control aspect. Okay, number 6 is, what do you dislike most about industrial design? There's a number of things that are frustrating about being an industrial designer. One of them is the amount of time and effort and work you can put into a lot of projects that just don't go anywhere, that never see the light of day. And although, you can get this in a lot of different fields, not just industrial design, but it is something that I think you need to, if you're someone who gets kind of emotionally attached to your work, it is something that you have to kind of balance and, not get too down about if, something doesn't come to fruition. The other aspect to this is realizing that, there's so many different things that need to come together to launch a product, other aspects that are just as important as industrial design. And again, you could have done an amazing job as an industrial designer, but if those other things are not in place, your product's not going anywhere. There are frustrations with working with clients sometimes because, well, at the end of the day, they are paying the bill, so they have the final say over what happens. And, no matter, you could present the most convincing argument, the best solution, have all the, evidence in the world about why something should be the way it is, and if they don't want to do that, they don't have to, right? And then it could also be other things like, you could have designed the product and then it could be like graphic identity placement on the product, maybe where the icon or the word mark goes on that product. If you could present the best options, what looks good. And if your client wants it in some funky place on the product, at the end of the day, even though, you kind of try and push them to a better solution, if that's what they want to do, that's what they're going to do. Number 7 is what makes an industrial design good. So I think that Dieter Rams has done a good job with his 10 principles of good design. I could try and come up with different words to kind of say the same thing, but to me that just sounds like a lot of work that might not, produce any new benefit. So if we think of Dieter Rams' 10 principles of good design as kind of like qualities of good design, I thought that in this answer I would mention sort of 3 things that I think an industrial designer needs to juggle in order to create good design. It's being able to juggle, your end user, your client's business objectives, and manufacturing. And a good industrial designer can juggle all 3 of these interests in order to create a good industrial design. Now, the end user, it's, of course, being empathetic to the end user, but also advocating for them, not just at the beginning of the project, but throughout the entire process. Business objectives, kind of a large topic. But, understanding your client, their resources, how the current project fits in to the larger scheme or their overall journey. You're calibrating your design effort to the objective of that specific project. I guess I wanted to bring that up because there's a lot that a good industrial designer can contribute that's far beyond what the average consumer will see when they just look at a final product. And, for example, one random example that I'm thinking of is, depending on where your client is in their journey, are you picking off the shelf components or are you making custom parts? And, maybe there's a transition from one to the other. And then as far as, manufacturing, also a large topic. All 3 of these are fairly large topics. Manufacturing has everything to do with, being able to propose manufacturable solutions, to calibrating, the design to specific volumes, to calibrating the design to price. I don't want to say price point, because I would always hesitate to tell someone that I could design something for a specific price. And I could just tell you a little story about something that we worked on recently, and we designed it for aluminum, and then, you know, Trump put his tariffs on aluminum, and it just made this project completely not feasible, and so we had to redesign the product for injection molding. So yeah, that's why I would always hesitate to say exactly, because you never know what can happen in the world, what can change and happen. So there you have it. I've answered the questions, very challenging, and I'm gonna go jump in the lake right now. So go check out the other videos, and I hope you guys got something out of this. Till next time, we'll see you guys later.